Hazır Giyim üreticileri için ticaret şartlarının iyileştirilmesi oturumunu hep birlikte karşılayacağız. Moderatörümüz Matyas Kriyete, Uluslararası Giyim Federasyonu Genel Sekreteri, Sustainable Apparel Coalition İcra Kurulu Başkan Yardımcısı Andrew Martin bizlerle olacak. Yine John Torbeck bizlerle olacak. Change Capital Yönetim Kurulu Başkanı ve İrem Yampar-Coş'tan Open Supply Hub Paylaş İletişim Müdürü. Ben şimdi oturum için sözü değerli konuklarıma bırakıyorum. Değerli alkışlarınıza efendim. Çok teşekkürler. Buyurun.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say, this is probably the toughest block in the whole day. We follow this beautiful song, and we were discussing among ourselves, and we were very tempted to forget about our presentation and also do a song. But I can assure you that we don't want to do that. We are not doing that. So that's good for you, I think. I'm speaking on behalf of myself now. Maybe. Good. Welcome to the session on purchasing practices. And before I give a little bit of an introduction on this topic, let me first introduce our speakers, two of whom are here, and one of whom will give a videotaped presentation. To my immediate left, Andrew Martin, the Executive Vice President for the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. And next to Andrew is Irem Yampar-Coş'tan, Stakeholder Engagement Manager of the Open Supply Hub. And the gentleman who you'll see on the video is John Thorbeck of Change Capital, and he will explain what he is doing. But he is based in Oregon, so that's rather far away. So that's why he has a taped message. Speaking about purchasing practices, a definition, it includes all of the buyer's actions around an order and a delivery that affect the supplier, including, for instance, planning and forecasting, delivery terms, payment terms, penalties. Purchasing practice is what we say an enabling factor for a more sustainable industry, or it is a contributing factor to bad conditions in the supply chain. So it is a very central topic. And we have heard many connections to law, to new legislation, to the CSDDD legislation. The European Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence legislation, as is known in full, refers to purchasing practices. Companies, brands and retailers are mandated to investigate the risks of bad labor and environmental conditions in their supply chains, the risk that these things are taking place. Of course, each country has a different risk profile, but what is actually often the most important risk in this due diligence is the purchasing behavior of the brands and the retailers themselves. So with that in mind, the IF, the federation that I represent, has co-founded an initiative called Sustainable Terms of Trade Initiative, STTI, and TTSD is one of the 13 associations from all over the world that is actually a very active participant in this. So actually manufacturers, and that is the good thing, have been a driving force in the work in the past years on the improvement of purchasing practices, as it should be. So having explained a little bit of the context, we now have the opportunity to hear three different approaches to purchasing practices. And we're going to start with the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, which is, as I think all of you know, the largest organization for sustainability in the apparel and textile industry in the world. And it has officially recognized the crucial role of purchasing practices in its new strategy. And we'll hear all about that from Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm going to leave that there. Thank you, Matthias. Firstly, thank you, TGSD. I'm trying to remember all the acronyms today. Thank you, TGSD, for the invitation and the opportunity. Thank you, honored guests, chairman, presidents, and your incredible representation from the Turkish manufacturing community. If you will indulge me, I was asked to also keep this a little bit light because it's been a long day, it's been an intense day. So the first thing I'd like to do as a record is, I'd like to take a picture of all of you. So I'm going to do a panorama photo. So when I say 3, 2, 1, if you could all wave, please use the Turkish flags if you want. And I'm going to take a picture which will show my wall of fame, which is the people who are dedicated, committed, and passionate to still be here. And I can also prove to my boss what I was actually doing. Okay, so after 3, 2, 1, wave, stand up, do whatever you want, but I'm going to have a picture. So stop until I get to that end. So 3, 2, 1, go.
That looks really good.
Fantastic. Give yourselves a round of applause. So I'm going to try and also get you a little bit interactive as well in this because we want to keep you awake at this time of the day. So my job today is to tell you a little bit about the role of purchasing practices in what is a revised strategy for a strategic plan for the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. Yay, it works. So another quick question. Hands up, who knows about the Sustainable Apparel Coalition? I was hoping it was more because that means I'm going to have to tell you about it now. You could have just told each other, but there's quite a few of you that don't. So the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. As Matthias said, we are the largest industry association for sustainability in social and in the global value chains in the apparel and footwear industry. We have around 290 members now and still growing. The membership represents brands, retailers, manufacturers, predominantly tier 1 and tier 2, but also now more to tier 3 and tier 4. We cover about, the figures are difficult to know for sure, but about 40 to 50% of the global apparel and footwear industry from a revenue perspective. So we have quite a major footprint there. We operate in, I think it's about 36 countries. So that's the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. How did it all start? This is a true story. So 2 people, I know one of them, I don't know the second one. I know David, do you know who it was from Walmart? I know it was from Patagonia, but there were 2 people who got together and basically said, and this was about 13, 14 years ago, I've got to get the dates right. They got together and said, measuring performance on sustainability, particularly environmental sustainability, at that day, the performance measurements that were there were kind of very much like comparing apples to oranges. Everybody had a different approach. Everybody had a different standard. Everybody had a different assessment. So the initial idea was very simple. Get together in a pre-collaborative space and try and create a common framework and a common methodology for measuring progress and performance in environmental performance in their value chains and their global supply chains. That's how the SAC began. And then in the next 10 years plus, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition started to create collaboratively with brands, retailers, manufacturers, and affiliates, NGOs, academia, around the table, a suite of tools. So my next question for you, hands up if you have heard of the HIG FEM, HIG Facility Environmental Module. Yeah. That's a bit more than actually know about the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, but that's fine, because many of you might have actually had to do the FEM. So the FEM was the first, and that was a tool that was created to have an aligned approach to environmental performance in global supply chains. There is now one for social, which is the FSLM, if you come across that. They were mentioned this morning, idyllic, I think, in their journey. So we have also tools for measuring products, the HIG product module and the HIG material sustainability index. And the one I'm going to talk to you about today is one of the more recent ones, which is the HIG BRM. Anybody heard of the HIG BRM? Hands up. That's really getting low. That's not so many at all. So this is great. You're going to learn something. The HIG BRM is the HIG brand and retail module. And this is quite exciting for the SAC because it was actually developed as a way of the brands and retailers themselves having a tool to measure their social and environmental performance. So that was the creation of the HIG BRM. And there's a very interesting story that I'm told, and I know David's been with the SEC working for a long time, that one of our immediate past president, actually, when the BRM was first created, so bear in mind, it's a measurement tool for brands and retailers, not the suppliers, for the brands and retailers on their performance. And the chairman, our current past chairman, stood up at an SAC, Sustainable Apparel Coalition conference, and said, I really look forward to the day when I can review the BRM score of my customers and decide whether I want to sell to them. So that's a bit of background. In 2021, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition established a strategy moving to 2025. What we've actually done in the last 8 to 9 months, because of a number of changes, is refined that strategy into something that is much more impact-focused, much more based on doing less and doing less better, but being very, very focused. We now have set three core evergreen pillars that we're going to be doing our work under. Combating climate change. We've heard again and again today the urgency and the need that we have to combat climate change. Creating a nature-positive future. The impacts of the apparel and footwear industry on biodiversity and natural resources is huge. We need to be looking at that. And then providing decent work for all, ensuring that there is fair, safe, well-being for workers and for people within the supply chain. Under those three, we've got, if you can remember the numbers now, so we've got 3. Under those, there are 7 focus areas that we are prioritizing for the next 2 to 3 years. Under combating climate, it's getting off coal, eliminating coal, it's renewable energy, and it's material efficiency. Under creating a nature-positive future, it's circular product design. We've heard a lot today about circularity and the importance of circular product design. And it's about establishing and agreeing foundational performance expectations for environmental performance in the supply chain. Under providing decent work for all, we have one also on establishing foundational performance requirements for social and labor expectations. Something, and I pick up on what Avidis was saying earlier, audit fatigue and reducing assessments is one thing, but actually then also taking the step of what are the expectations across the brands so that we can start to get some sense of alignment. And we don't expect to do this top down. This is something we want to be collaborating on and something we will be working very closely with the IAF on as part of a new MOU we've just signed. But the last pillar, the last focus area under providing decent work for all is on responsible purchasing practices. What Matthias has introduced to us and something that we believe is critical. So why do we believe responsible purchasing practices are critical to achieving these goals? Well, for us, and I think Matthias, you laid it out quite well, I think to actually, there's such an imbalance. There's such an importance on the relationships. And I think, David, the relationships you were talking about with your suppliers and the Spinova bestseller were really good examples of how we need to change the system by collaborating. Cem, this morning you talked about the importance of collaboration on decarbonisation. Actually, it's critical that these relationships are built, but responsible purchasing practices help to create frameworks, help to create concrete contracts, help to support behaviour, but in a very real and concrete way. Why did the SAC choose responsible purchasing practices as one of our key focus areas? Apart from that, we also think it's a key lever for systemic change in the industry. We believe we have a responsibility as an organization that represents 40 to 50% of the industry. We have a responsibility to make this happen, and also we have leverage, scope, and scale to work on pushing and driving something we see as critical. And thirdly, coming back to the conversations today about collaboration and decarbonization, all of our other goals will not be achieved if we don't focus on the relationships that we build and the practices that there are throughout the supply chain. And that's purchasing practices between brands and tier 1, but tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3, that is going to be critical to actually deliver decarbonization, to deliver improvements in biodiversity. Unless we do that, I've been saying increasingly, quite openly, to some of our brands that we work with, brands and retailers, they've made very public commitments on science-based targets. that are out there, that people are questioning now. My challenge is none of them will achieve their science-based targets unless they focus on the relationships, unless they focus on building the relationships with their value chain. And responsible purchasing practices is core to that. How can you expect companies to invest to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, to be more efficient, if they don't have long-term relationship, expectations for the business going forward? And how are we going to do that? How are we going to focus on responsible purchasing practices? Matthias referenced one of the tools that I talked to you about earlier, the HIG BRM, the HIG Brand and Retail module, which we've just released a new version of. And to remind you again, it's an assessment and it's a self-assessment for brands and retailers on their environmental and social performance. The new version, launched in March 2023, has been now focused with 3 pillars based on a traditional ESG model. We have then subsections of the impact areas, with the next piece is due diligence steps to follow in order to deliver on that. To give you an idea, 43% of the questions that we have in the worker section on the BRM are all related to responsible purchasing practices. So we're focusing on it in the tool. How do we actually also support the industry? We've worked very closely with STTI. That was critical to us, to actually work with industry frameworks that are being developed so that there is a common approach. So that has informed the questions. That has directly framed the approach that we have to the questions on responsible purchasing practices in the new HIG BRM. So partnering on that is absolutely critical for us. So we have the tool. We're now doing the assessments. We are now getting the information. So there was a lot of talk today about data. We've got lots of data on FEM and greenhouse gas emissions. We've got lots of data on FSLM. We've now started to get more and more data from the BRM, from the brand and retail purchasing, the brand and retail performance in social and environmental. We're just starting to analyze this, starting to look at it to see what we can do with it. But I'm coming towards the end because I wanted to give you just the flavor of the kind of insights that we're starting to pick up from the tool that we have when we're looking at how a brand and retailer performs when it comes to responsible purchasing practices. So 65% of companies have a policy to commit to responsible purchasing practices. If they've got a policy, they're committed to it. 40% have targets. That's 40% of 40 to 50% of the industry, let's say. There's a long way to go. We actually need to really hone in and focus on this. One of the other questions is an example for you. 34% have now implemented systems to ensure the prices cover social and labor requirements throughout. But the number of suppliers, therefore, is limited. Responsible purchasing practices for us must become a central element to the broader sourcing strategy at a company. It's not just for the sustainability professionals. It's actually for the buyers. It's embedding that in their processes, in their practices, in their contracts. It's absolutely critical to drive the change we need to see. So as I'm coming to the close here, and then I'm going to leave it to Irem, and then we might have some questions. We're very strongly committed, and it's one of the key focus areas for the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, is to drive responsible purchasing practice improvements throughout the industry. What are we going to do with the data? We're going to use it to engage people on sourcing strategies, to engage companies on their commitments. We're going to start looking at developing roadmaps. We're going to start working on training. How do we train both suppliers and brands and retailers on what responsible purchasing practices look like? A lot of that work, I think, will be very much in collaboration with the International Apparel Federation, because bringing that voice to the table is critical to us. I think it's going to require even greater transparency. There is the option for the HIG BRM, and I don't know if any of you know this or supply SAC members. If they are willing to, they can share their BRM performance. They can share their scores. They can share, how they've answered the questions. So some of our more progressive members are moving into the space of wanting to actually say to their supply chains, this is how I'm doing. And you can then, maybe you do get to the point where you start to choose if you want to sell to them or not. But for us, responsible purchasing practices is a critical lever in driving partnerships, in driving relationships that are going to actually help all of us deliver the major changes we need to make the world a better place, to transform this world, the working lives of people. It's absolutely critical and at the core of what we're going to be doing and working on going forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. And well, at IF, we're really excited about the opportunities given by this collaboration, because we can now also on a collective level, big group of manufacturers worldwide, speak with a big group of brands and retailers. And that is, I think this day has made clear, absolutely necessary to move on. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Irem from the Open Supply Hub. Different perspective, enabling manufacturers, I would say, among other things, to create supply chain transparency in a much more cost-effective way, because it's also a big global system. So we're eager to hear from you.
Yeah, here. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us, not us, but Open Supply Hub and me today. Today, I'm going to present you Open Supply Hub, how it works, and how, as a supplier, how you can use it. But before diving in, I would like to share some, background under our foundation. As we all know, supply chains are complex, right? Especially textile and apparel supply chain. It is so complex, so long, and so opaque. That's why it's very easy to hide social and environmental exploitations in it. It's very hard to reach and collect high quality supply chain data, and it's very hard to find accurate, updated facility information. But with this out of sight, out of mind attitude, it's impossible to fight against big problems such as climate crisis, such as modern slavery or deforestation. And to solve all these problems, we need transparency, because we can't solve those problems without, knowing the real reason behind them. And we need collaboration as well, because these are huge problems, and they can't be solved by one company, one organization, or just one platform or certification scheme. At this point, as Open Supply Hub, we believe that the high quality open supply chain data is so important. It's so important because it leads us to connect each other and collaborate, work together for a more livable world. To achieve this goal, Open Supply Hub developed a supply chain mapping tool which is open, accessible for everyone for free. And it shows where production facilities are located and ecosystem around it, such as companies producing in that facility, or certification schemes are certifying their processes, their products, or civil society organization implementing programs with that facilities. And our platform actually relies on data contributors. And for example, brands like H&M or Bestseller or VH Group, they're uploading their production facilities to our platform. On the other hand, certification schemes like Oekotex uploads their users that have STEP certificate, for example, and SLCP uploads its members lists. So you can see all facilities all around the world and the brands and organizations that are affiliated with that facilities. When a list is uploaded to Open Supply Hub, it generates a unique ID for each facility. And if another brand or organization uploads information for the same facility, that data will be gathered under that unique ID. So you can reach high quality data powered by different stakeholders under the same ID in one platform, and it unlocks many collaboration opportunities. By the way, our ID scheme is becoming kind of industry standard, because SLCP and ZDHC are already asking facility OSID in their forms. Yes. It's a screenshot from our platform. On the left-hand side, you can see the filters such as facility name, data contributors, sectors, product type, process type, and etc. On the middle part, you can see the facilities, which is a result of that search. And on the right side, you can see the location on the map. So this search specifically shows the facilities who are producing for H&M and affiliated with Worldly, as known as Higindex, and located in Turkey. So you can see and filter this search on Open Supply Hub and find some specific facilities on Open Supply Hub. By the way, you can add other brands like bestseller with company or other certification like Ökotex, ZDSC, SLP, etc. Yes, now there are more than 200K facility listed on Open Supply Hub, and we have 750, more than 750 actually, contributors to our platform. We are a non-profit platform. And GIZ, Humanity United, Laudes Foundation have been supporting us since the first day of our organizations, and we have some new funders as well, such as Amazon, Target, and Walt Disney. To give a little more context about how different stakeholders use Open Supply Hub, as the brands will be accountable for their whole supply chains with these upcoming, legislation and due diligence, it's a good start for them to upload their supplier list so that they can create a reliable base for ESG reporting and show their commitment to transparency. They also use Open Supply Hub as a sourcing platform, which is so important for the facilities here, actually. They do search filtering with GOAT, SLCP, and Ökotex and find the best possible supplier they would like to work with. They can also find possible partners for a project. For example, think about a brand. They would like to pay living wage in one facility. They can collaborate with other brands who are producing in that facility to increase its cost to them. And secondly, industrial organization and service providers. They also Open Supply Hub to clean their databases because they have hundreds of members and encourage member transparency and to be able to work with other organizations by using OSID. Third one is civil society. Actually, they're using us for collaboration opportunities and find the best possible partners. For example, WWF used our database to match apparel facilities with key conservation areas, so they can find possible partners in that regions. It helps them to save a lot of time and money. Last but not least, facilities. Facilities are using Open Supply Hub as a free marketing tool, actually. They have visibility on a global platform, which is open to anyone for free. They can see what information brands and organizations uploads for them, and that's why they have a chance to correct them as well. Some facilities use Open Supply Hub as a benchmarking tool. For example, if they miss an order from that brand to Bangladesh, just an example, they can quickly see those facilities working with that brands in that specific country and compare them themselves. And of course, as brands, facilities also can use it as a sourcing platform to find new suppliers. But the most important thing is, differently from other stakeholders, facilities can claim their profiles to add some additional information there about their plants. They can add, minimum order quantities, small description of their plants, contact information, standard and certificate information as well. So it increases their visibility because lots of, stakeholders are using our platform as a sourcing tool. Actually, we have a lot of good case studies, but I would like to mention the earthquake map that we published just after Kahramanmaraş earthquake. It includes the facilities in the affected area, and we receive a lot of good feedback from the brands about how it helps them to plan their support to these facilities. On the other hand, actually, it's been used by many organizations and researchers to report how brands support and don't support those facilities and how their purchasing behaviors affects those impacted facilities in good and bad ways. As a final word, as a call to action, if you are an owner or a manager of a facility, you can check your profile on Open Supply Hub and claim your profile, add additional information about your facility. It's for free. Yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Giyim. And I think this is a very good example of where transparency is expensive often for manufacturers. They have to collect a lot of data, and that can sometimes turn out to be, a bad purchasing practice in the sense that the data is not paid for. But we can see that there is technology, and it's sort of a Wikipedia being developed where all data can be added by individuals and by other parties. And it's starting to be, I think, quite a powerful tool that has some very pleasant side effects, if I hear it, because it can also be used as a marketing instrument, and it can be used as a sourcing search engine for brands. So it's something to take into account. I would like to announce now the video, so the technical team can start to prepare the video. We wanted to show one other important perspective on purchasing practices, and that is the business perspective. We have a combination of ITC, which is a UN organization, and the IAF initiated a study on full supply chain profitability. It shows the changes that must be made to the industry's business and sourcing model to enable better purchasing practices. It connects better business outcomes to the whole supply chain with better sustainability outcomes. And as you will see in the presentation, one of the quotes is, you can't invest money in sustainability if it's locked up in inventory. So there's a big link between the business models, the sourcing models, and the ability to actually invest in sustainability, which is a great example of how purchasing practices affect the ability to improve sustainability. So please run the video by
Thank you, Matthias, and thank you to all in Istanbul for including me in your agenda today. I'd like to preview project work with the International Trade Center in Geneva and the International Apparel Federation in Amsterdam. The question they ask is this: what is fashion's alternative approach to create value versus over-reliance on lowest cost global production? The target audience is buyers and suppliers in fashion, and the title of the report is Under the Banyan Tree, a place to come together. Our finding is that supplier-led innovation can reimagine upstream value in the supply chain. The place to start is process and productivity, and the goal is to revolutionize risk in a high-risk business. I'd like process and productivity to be a part of today's discussion on purchasing practices. What does it take to be responsive and responsible across all tiers of the value chain, including financial capital, as well as data science tools to get us there? Shared risk is a business model that supersedes cost alone. The battlefield of competition today is supply chain performance. And I think Warren Hausman says it here better than I do. So shared risk is a supply chain perspective of economics and opportunity in productivity and is a complement to financial strategy in shared value and to organizational strategy in shared purpose. Together, integrated, these three are a powerful strategy for buyers and suppliers in fashion. Upstream value is in inventory and sustainability. These two areas are inseparable because there just isn't sufficient capital to be successful in both. So the more productive we are in inventory allows us to think about accelerating investment in sustainability. And that combination is substantial upstream value and is reflected in these metrics. I hope it's noticeable that unit cost and ex-factory pricing is not on the list. There are substantial opportunities to create non-price value. What is the role of technology? Well, new data science is, with design for risk over minimizing cost is very promising. These ventures were part of our case studies in production in the US, production in Europe for luxury, and then production in Asia and in China. And the conclusion from these case studies is that process and data innovation creates more value than location. So geography is not destiny, and process innovation and data science is a significant opportunity for both buyers and suppliers. We're reimagining our sources of value. Is it in variety and convenience and delivery of goods, as Amazon would teach us? Or is it in distribution and logistics and warehouse and getting goods to stores, as in the Walmart example? It's no longer in the magic mile when fashion is sold in volume. Today, fashion is sold at discount, and we have unnecessary inventory and excess production that often ends up in landfills and incinerators around the world. So we look to electronics for inspiration in creating value in the first mile of the supply chain. Apple is known for its product innovation, but it is also process innovation that together creates their remarkable market value and performance. If our goal and shared purpose is sustainability, then I think shared risk is the way to get there. Let me repeat our opening question. What is fashion's alternative approach to create value versus over-reliance on lowest cost global production? Well, I think the global supplier community has the answer in upstream value so that we can create a fashion industry that is more productive, more profitable, and more sustainable. So thank you for letting me preview Under the Banyan Tree. There is much more to come as we're in the countdown to publish and launch, and I look forward to a next conversation. Thank you.
So we are looking forward to the publication of this report in about 1 to 2 months' time. It will have all kinds of case studies also to show that these models don't only work in very high-end fashion or only in micro scale. They also work in big scale models. They work in all kinds of models. And we really like the idea of creating upstream value and the role of manufacturers in enabling that. That automatically creates better purchasing practices and creates room, as John was saying, for investments in sustainability. So we really focus also on the business side of the purchasing practices and how to enable that in working in different business and sourcing models between brands and their suppliers. Now I'm looking at the clock. I was supposed to also have a round of questions, but I think We're overshooting a little bit. I would really like to invite you at any time right after the conference or by email or other means of communication. You can find Andrew, you can find Irem. I think we should end the session with 47 seconds on the clock. I would like to thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again.